and welcome back to another of the World Explorers podcast. As always, I'm joined by Isaac, who supposedly has a very exciting topic for us this week.
Supposedly. Okay, so, I was thinking back to the memory elevator as, like, our first one, and thinking of how, it wasn't how the world was built, not so much on fantastical, otherworldly elements, but more took the elements that already existed in our world, and then just like use those to world build. Like, for example, taking memories and then world building with that using an elevator. That sort of thing. And there's a concept that I've seen used, but haven't seen used to quite the extent in the way that I'm thinking, which is a door that leads to your greatest fear.
Ooh.
Now, I've seen it used before. And there's a lot of different things that have been used before that have some sort of thing that leads to your greatest fear, whether it's a dream, a portal, something.
A demon entity.
Yeah, something gives you your greatest fear. It's a stock episode for a lot of shows. But I was thinking, but I saw one time. I saw one time there was like, there was a door in a show that led to your greatest fear. That was not a prominent part of the story that I really feel like it should have been. It was only there for a couple minutes and then disappeared out of the story.
So this is you just being upset with the show and wanting to fulfill your desires for the podcast?
Not really, because I was thinking to myself, what if we were to take that idea and make it so that this door could lead to another world, not just like your imagination, but a whole other world where whoever steps through that door and into this other world, their greatest fear becomes a reality. Unless their greatest fear is the end of the world, then I guess the world ends and the door's no more.
They just cease to exist.
Yeah, and so that it's not like a whole bunch of every most horrible thing that everyone is always paranoid about happens. This is the sort of thing where the world is only made up of the greatest fears of whoever steps through, and not many people step through. And
I guess once you leave the world, if you leave, I should say, the world would then also kind of reset in a way. Because
I was thinking that if you were to leave the world, your greatest fear would go with you.
Yeah, it's more like the cloud in Narnia: The Dawn Treader.
Kind of. Except there wasn't even in the book, but kind of.
It was in the book, the cloud thing with your greatest fear.
The green mist?
Yeah.
I thought that wasn't in the book.
It was in the book.
Oh, I know somebody
the White Witch didn't show up in the movie, in the book like she did in the movie, but...
Okay. I just was having this conversation with somebody who was complaining.
Nothing happens in the book. They got out easy.
But it's barely prominent in the book at all. It's kind of like the door.
Yeah,
it's barely prominent.
Yeah, but I find that interesting. So, I guess first off is, where is this door?
Okay, so that one I was really wondering about, and I was thinking, what if this was a door that, in the story, is kind of unclear as to where it is or where it comes from, because the door would actually move and change locations and change form and what it looks like to fit its surroundings, kind of like a TARDIS. Back to the TARDIS thing. This really is like the memory elevator. Anyway, it would be something like...
This doesn't have its own building. This is a door that just... picks its targets. I feel like it'd be a door that picks its targets, in which case, what targets is it going after? What traits do these people have that this door is attracted to, and why is it attracted to them?
Yeah, so, maybe, but I was thinking, back before we get to that, the door changing its location, its form, I was thinking something like, it'd be something like you're walking through a school building, just mind your own business, but then suddenly you notice there's a door here that wasn't there before, and it just looks like a normal door, and you're like, did they add that in recently? That doesn't... I don't recall this door being there. There's no sign on it.
And
what's it supposed to lead to?
And then you open it, and then everyone watching the movie screams, "Don't open the door, you idiot!" as they walk through, and then you just see the blood splurt out off screen, and you're like, "Oh, we warned him," even though you didn't. But
I was thinking your greatest fear is not necessarily a deadly one.
Yeah, I know. See, I'd be interested to see how my greatest fear would be associated in it, because mine involves other people. Like, people I know. So how would that work? Because some people's fear is their loved ones being hurt, or something bad happening to those they know. Would they get teleported into the world, or would the world create people that look like them?
I think that there would be like a fake set of loved ones in that world that would somehow get hurt or die.
Okay, so your real loved ones are unaffected, but you wouldn't know that.
Yes, this is all like more of an illusion, and you can't tell what's actually happening. But but this world could still very well be a threat to you once you are in it.
Yeah, because you're in it.
So if your greatest fear is a meteor shower coming down and hitting you, that could happen. And it suddenly becomes a real threat. But if your greatest fear is something more personal, like
psychological,
like a loved one getting hurt or leaving you or something like that, then that could definitely happen. And maybe it's not even
psychological. People who have psychological fears would probably get off easier because they won't die. They'll come out crying, realize their loved ones are okay, and then just go to counseling for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
The people who fear like death and stuff like that, and they go into it, well, they meet with death.
Yeah. I wonder if your greatest fear is getting mugged.
I guess you could crawl out, but some muggers kill. I guess it depends on...
I think it depends on how good you are at escaping said mugger.
Does the door want you dead?
I'm not sure. I was wondering about this. This is the sort of thing I was wondering if we could build on, because this is just a concept. Door leads to your greatest fear. Let's roll with it.
Yeah, because if the door wants you dead, then the muggers would kill you. Like, if its ultimate goal is to get your death. Like, that's the door for some reason feeds on people's deaths. That's why it goes around killing people. In which case, it would try to get you to sorry for going this direction, commit suicide, using your fears and stuff, or the muggers their goal would ultimately to be killing you after producing fear. But if the door's goal is just to get that emotion of fear, and it doesn't care if it kills you or not, or rather keeps you alive so you can feed on your fear for longer, then that kind of changes things. People are more likely to survive the door.
Yeah, what if it can do more than one fear? Like, it can present your greatest fears, plural, to you, and then its goal is to kill you with said fears or get you to kill yourself.
Yeah.
But it can't. But if it's something emotional, a personal thing, it can't necessarily directly kill you with that. But it might be able to drive you to kill yourself, or it could drive you in a direction to a different fear or some other danger that could kill you.
So are we establishing that the door's goal is death, or is it just to gain fear?
I think that seems like an interesting one. I like the idea of death. I could see it going either way, being good.
Yeah.
But I would want to know what if it was going. Yeah, and if we were to go with power or seeking power, we'd have to ask what's the point in it gaining power? What's its ultimate goal?
I mean, we have to ask that anyways, because the death is giving it power. The death feeds it. It feeds off of death. So my question is just, what was it feeding off of, death or fear? Because those are two. Because that creates two different motivations for the door.
I mean, I'd say death would be more interesting. Then again, it's this problem is if
you want characters
if the door
to live,
were to present,
we need fear. We need it to be fear.
I'm just thinking, on one hand, the door would present your greatest fear to you pretty constantly. until you have overcome that fear, and then it presents to you your next greatest fear.
Yeah.
That's what the door would do if it was feeding off fear.
Yeah, but if its goal is death, it's just going to kill you with your fear. Like, if your fear is heights, it's going to push you off a building, you fall, you die, that's it. There's no way for you to, like, save yourself. But if it
hold on. I'm thinking if your fear is... Hold on. I'm thinking if your fear is something like heights, it cannot kill you with the heights, but it can present you with the fear, putting you in situations where you are constantly thrown on top of buildings, near cliffs, a rickety bridge, send you to these, drive you in these different directions where it can't necessarily teleport you from point A to point B, but it can send some other force to influence you to go that direction. For example, let's say you have a fear of cops, and you have fear of heights. What if cops were, for some reason, chasing you up a building to the roof, where you are now cornered between the cops and the ledge?
So that's the sort of thing where it can death.
What?
You just be picking your death then. Like, which death do you fear least?
Yeah, but I'm just saying.
In which case, most people would go with the cops because you can't. In that case, you're not overcoming a fear. You're just being frozen by you not being able to face jumping.
What if the door? What if the door had a rule where it can't actually directly kill you at all, but it can? But it tries to drive you.
So it can only kill. You can only die from your own choice. The person has to choose to die.
Yeah, like for example, the cops will run up to you. They will point the gun, but they will not shoot.
So you have to be driven off the ledge.
Or they will shoot, but they will always miss.
Yeah, but the fear of them shooting you is their goal is to push you to jump off the ledge.
Yeah, so it's going to constantly try to kill you with all your greatest fears, but you have to be the one to kill yourself.
You have to.
It's basically a mugger holding a knife up to you, but he won't stab you. You have to grab that knife and stab yourself. That's basically what the door is trying to do.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a dark door. This is a very dark episode. I've put warnings in the description, so if you're listening to this and you're like, what did I get myself into? It's your own fault. I warned you.
And I'm thinking, the door can only arm itself with whatever your fears are.
Yeah, okay. So
and if you have minor fears, it might still be able to use them, but they might not necessarily be super effective.
But it could be enough.
If you have a small fear of spiders, it could maybe send a wave of spiders after you, which would be a little more scary than an individual spider.
But
which is still spiders. I'm just gonna go into my car, drive away.
I mean, you might not have a car. Then again, car crashes is a fear.
I mean, yeah, if you have a fear of car crashes...
Can they hurt you? Can the thing, cause you physical pain?
I think maybe a small bit, I don't know. Because I'm thinking maybe it can't.
Because some people's fear is physical pain, or some things they fear it because it would cause physical pain, like a car crash. Or, some people's fear is losing a limb. Like, if they lost their ability to use a certain limb or item or something, then they would kill themselves because they feel useless without it. So I almost feel like it can hurt you to an extent. It can't kill you, but it could hurt you up to the point where it might not be actual pain. I think would be the thing. The only actual pain you feel is what you've caused yourself.
Yeah.
But it can make it think it's hurting. You've been hurt. So it can make you think you've lost a limb, but if you were to step out of the door, you would find it's still there.
Yeah.
If that, yeah.
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 I like that.
Okay. So you can be hurt.
And can you imagine the character depth you would get out of a world like this?
A lot. This feels like another cool short story collection of the door appearing to different types of people. And so you're getting everyone's adventure, and then I don't know. So what do you think the survival rate for this is? How do you survive? How do you get back to the door? Does the door let you get back?
I think maybe it would. Maybe what happens is once you've gone through the door, you cannot simply just open the door and walk back. If you open the door and it leads to an alleyway, you're like, where am I? I'm going to turn around. You open the door and the door opens up to a brick wall. the door doesn't actually lead to anything. And you're like, oh, that's a problem. It's kind of like the doors from Monsters, Inc. It's you're thrown out, you into the icy tundra, you open the door, and there's nothing there.
Yeah, that makes sense. But we need a way out, or else... Or maybe we don't. Maybe that's the point of the world. You go in and you die there. That's it.
I mean, that would end up with like a 100% depressing ending.
I just never said, well, we can't always have happy worlds. Things can't always be caused.
I didn't say the world is happy, but there's the opportunity to get away, at least.
I think that we need...
Whoever is writing this story can choose whether or not they want to have a way out. So you can easily say there's no way out if you're writing a horror story where your characters are going to die. That's fine. Now, for the people who don't want that, because I'm one of the people who wouldn't write that story, let's make a way out of this world so that people have options.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay, so I think that there would need to be... that maybe the door... moves itself, but not just outside of this other world, but inside the world as well. And the goal is to find that door and catch it, open it, something. Now we gotta figure out, how does the door move?
We also have to figure out how do you catch it. Like what So we know that the door, so the door works off of death, not fear. So its goal, it needs you to die. But at the same time, I guess the door has a code that at some point you've beaten it. So I think where the door's at doesn't really matter. What does matter is, when does the door say, okay, you win?
It might be when you're when you keep on facing the fears, or maybe it's to a point where you realize that these are all your greatest fears and that they cannot hurt you. Fear is an illusion. It cannot hurt you.
Oh, one of those, like when you're when you like wake up from the Matrix and you're like, oh, this is actually, it was just a dream. This is
kind of a guess. I haven't seen the Matrix.
I mean, I haven't either.
Everything I've gained, all my knowledge of the Matrix, I have gained from.
I have none either, so I probably misquoted it. I was kind of hoping you had, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, but I guess we'll never know.
I don't watch the R-rated stuff.
I don't either. I've only ever watched one R-rated movie my entire life, and it was a war movie, and could have been PG-13. It wasn't that bad.
Okay, so where were we?
Door. The door has... We need a way for the door to know that you've won, and we're thinking that you've realized it's all a dream. Now here's the issue. We have to make sure that understand that the door knows the difference between you wishing it was a dream and believing it's a dream.
Yeah, because like if you just wish that none of this was happening, everybody would be safe. Because nobody wants their greatest fear to come true.
Now, here's the thing. Here's an idea. So, your biggest fear is heights. Now, there are two types of people. There's the person driven by fear and everything else who jumps off because of fear. And then there's a person who accepts their fear and jumps off. One of them lives, the other doesn't, though they both do the same thing.
I mean, I was thinking that you're still accepting your fear, but accepting your fear does not mean surviving it. Like, if you were to jump... Like, I can say I am not afraid of heights, but if I still go jump off a building, I'm still gonna die.
Well, I think it's more like believing that you can't just say, oh, this is a dream. You have to believe it so much that you're willing to die via the fear.
I think it's more, I was thinking more along the lines of, you're still taking that action to kill yourself. But I think it's more like, if let's say you were cornered between the ledge and the cops pointing their guns at you, the cops say, don't move, we will shoot. But you keep on moving because the door can't kill you. You're not the one pulling the trigger. The door would have to pull the trigger to kill you. So you can just walk by the cops, and all they're doing is they're throwing threats at you. Mm. But you just walk by. By the way, I'm not trying to demonize cops here. Just I want to make that clear. I'm just using them as an example because I know that some people have that fear.
Yeah, I mean, we could go back to the muggers. Everyone's scared of muggers.
Yeah,
I think muggers might be a safer example.
Yeah, okay, yeah, so let's do that. Muggers chase you to the top of the building and have you cornered. That's a much better, much safer example. Mm-hmm. I was not trying to demonize cops, making that clear.
It has been made clear. We understand what you were going for. We're switched analogies. We're safe now. We can proceed.
Yeah, except I've already used the unsafe one.
It's too late. If it's and I can't edit it out. We've made too many good points with it.
Okay, and I mean, you could just take my recording
No,
muggers,
look.
and then
Editing this podcast already takes 2 hours of my life, okay? And it's an hour to film it. No.
Okay, so I'm just thinking, like, you're cornered by the muggers, but you choose to just, like, walk by the muggers, because, like, you're not afraid of them. You might be afraid of them, but they cannot kill you. You're afraid of the heights, but the height cannot directly kill you unless you jump off the edge.
Okay.
Just because the mugger has a gun or a knife, that doesn't mean that they can kill you. But you could always take that knife or that gun and kill yourself.
Yeah.
All they're there to do is to push you to the edge so that you take your own life.
Okay, so no matter what, jumping off is ending your life. So the door will appear once... So I guess, but what happens if your fears are only things like heights? Like, there's no way for you to walk past... Yeah, there's no way for you to walk past it and, like, show that you're no longer afraid of it. Or, like, that you know it won't hurt you in this world. Like, other than jumping off or something like that. Like, what do you do at that point?
I think it would depend on what the phobias are. I mean, some people have a fear of marshmallows.
Do they?
Yes, that's fear.
It's the people have fears.
Cotton balls.
Yeah.
That's a real fear.
Yeah.
I can't remember. I can't remember if it was Michael Jackson that had a fear of cotton balls. I can't remember.
Look, I have a weird fear of, like, open windows in the moving vehicle, so, you know, I won't judge anyone.
Yeah, so I'm just, so something that could happen is you get into your car and your windows are down and you cannot roll them back up.
Yeah.
They're just stuck.
I mean, that's more just an anxiety thing. And it's more like watching my possessions blow out the window. Like, I got traumatized as a kid as someone threw my stuff out of a moving car window. So now I'm, of course, like, extremely anxious every time a car's windows are open because I'm scared things will fly off. It's one of the reasons I'll never get on a motorcycle. Because I'm terrified, like, something's gonna fall off and I'll never see it again.
It's like everything is a window.
Exactly. I cannot get on a motorcycle. And it's not because I'm scared of crashing or I don't trust whoever happens to be driving it. It's because I'm scared of my stuff falling off. Like, trucks, when I see, like, a truck go by and they have, like, or someone has something on top of their roof, that makes me so unbelievably anxious. I hate it. Like, I'm terrified. Like, I don't trust those straps. The only thing I trust is if all the windows are closed and you're safe inside and your items are all inside the vehicle.
Okay. So, yeah, I could see, like, something like, the windows being down. That's not something that can kill you.
No.
But it can make you a little more mentally unstable.
Yeah, it probably.
And the more small things it could do like that to make you mentally unstable, the more irrational you could become.
Yeah.
And so it keeps on throwing out these smaller fears that aren't necessarily life-threatening, but enough of them, if they were to suddenly throw out the smaller fears, but then a giant one, that it could push you off the edge.
Literally. If your fear is of heights, literally.
Yeah, and then maybe you're, but I mean, there's and oftentimes people's greatest fear will change over time.
Yeah.
Today, my greatest fear is failing my test.
Yeah.
Today, my greatest fear is wrecking a car. Today, my greatest fear is, and yeah, like...
Anxiety, yeah, and I can sense all that and change accordingly. But I'm still very confused about, like, how you get out. Like, I'm not satisfied.
Okay, that's where we need to, we haven't actually established that yet.
Yeah, we've put out suggestions, but they don't feel right. Like,
I don't think we even made suggestions.
Well, you made, like, we've been making suggestions on the idea of, like, you have to prove that you don't believe your fear can hurt you anymore. Or, like, realizing it's all a dream. But even then, that doesn't feel quite right. Like, I don't think you should ever be allowed to know. Like, the door will never let you know that it's a dream. Or it's not real.
I mean, I think it's more, somebody might realize at one point, as they're being squished between the muggers and the ledge, they keep on threatening, they keep on swinging their knives, but they're really bad at mugging you.
Nothing's happening.
Like, they can't do anything, and you just realize, what's going on? You've had golden opportunities to kill me. Why haven't you?
See, but the thing is, at that point, it's not you defeating your fear or facing your fear. It's just you realizing that you're not actually facing a fear. But you're not like you're not standing against a fear. You're not like
yeah. I mean, I was thinking it's more like the idea that fear is an illusion.
Okay. So I guess the goal is that you can now wander around this world and like you're no longer producing the feeling of fear, and then I guess the door realizes, well, I can't feed off you anymore, and you're dead. You're not gonna die, no matter what I throw off you. I guess eventually that once you just sit there and you realize nothing can hurt you, the door's just standing there like, well, this doesn't work. But here's the thing, Isaac. This person can then go and tell people about the door and how they defeat it, and that cannot be allowed to happen.
Except what happens when... Okay, so let's say you leave the door. Let's say you've gone into the... back to the normal world. You say, hey, everybody, this door leads to your greatest fear. Don't go in. But if you do, here's how to defeat it. Everyone's going to look at you and think you're crazy. And when they show up, they find out the door is moved.
Okay. So we just have one of the... But eventually you get, like, enough sightings. Because I feel like this is a door that moves. Like, it needs a lot of people. It wants to feed off of people. So, what... I almost think like you come out of the door and something traumatic has happened to you, like maybe the door is almost fed to your trauma or something. Like you wake up in the hospital or something, or you're passed out in the hallway or something. So you wake up and you're like, you thought it was a dream, and you wake up and it's now actually a dream, but it's not actually. It's actually a door. And if you dive to the door, then your dead body's just found in the hallway.
Oh, so now the door kills you no matter what.
No, that's not what I meant. I meant, so you exit the door and you've lived, so you're just found, like, passed out where you had found the door. So it was all a dream. You wake up, it was all a dream, you're actually fine. But, if the door did succeed in killing you, then your body would be found where the door was. Your body doesn't just disappear.
Okay, so it just spits your body out.
Yeah, it took what it wanted, it spits your body out. Because if people start going missing... there's going to be questions. But if people are found, like, just dead via heart attacks and stuff, or whatever cause of death the door deems, no one's going to really question that. Or, especially if it looks like they died from suicide every time. It's just that. Yeah, and then this is the best part about this world, right? For the reader, they don't know that they're unsure if this is an actual door or not. They're not sure if it's just all in people's subconscious, and if you're just trying to make, like, this whole dramatic statement about the mind of someone who's suicidal. Or if if there's actually a door going around sucking people up and dumping them into their greatest fear.
I mean, at that point, what you need to do is you can put several people into the door at once.
Yeah, and then that fixes that pretty easily.
And you can also have it where maybe they're separated.
Yeah.
Like, there's one guy who walks through the door and it leads to an alleyway where he's gonna get mugged. But then another guy walks through the door and he winds up in a different spot. He winds up, let's say, out in the wilderness with no phone service.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think you can experience it together. I don't think that should be something people can do. Because the thing about fear is it loses a lot of its power once you can experience it with others.
Ah, but that would be one of the key things, is that one person, it's like you have one person who fears one thing, the other person does not fear that thing.
Yeah,
and they are separated in the beginning so that, the door will intentionally separate them.
Yeah.
So that they cannot support each other. But when they eventually find each other, then they can overcome the fears together and escape.
If the door lets them. How big is the door? I mean, it's the door.
Again, the rules we haven't established, like, solid rules as to what the door will
has
allow
power
or
over.
not allow. Or,
it's more like what does the door have power over?
Whether or not you can escape it, or how you would go about escaping it.
Yeah. Or like limits to how many people can come in at one time. Stuff like that. There's a lot of little things you gotta work out.
Yeah, because I'm just thinking, when you have a fear of cotton balls, you could be terrified when you're in a cotton ball factory.
Yeah.
But then your friend shows up and is just like,
dude, it's cotton balls.
What the heck? It's cotton balls. Here, let me just put a blindfold over you, and you're just gonna have to trust me. We're gonna walk towards the exit. There's no cotton balls in our way. Yeah, we're just blindfold you so you don't see the cotton balls around you. Here we go.
I just realized that we've actually switched it. Like, in the beginning, I thought that people who feared, like, physical things would have it harder in this world, but now it's actually people with the psychological fears who would have it harder. Because those are the fears that the door can fully act on, unlike physical fears, which they have to... I mean, we've established they can hurt you, though. Pain is a thing. So,
I mean, the fears can hurt you, just not directly. Like, it can present the ledge to you.
Well, but like, again, what do we do about the fear? So we thought, like, the fear of being blind. The door can make you blind then. Or the fear of losing an arm. Maybe you don't feel physical pain. Like, you can't feel physical pain by it. But, like, but you can feel the loss of it. Like, it's kind of like, you've lost the arm, but you've already, like, it's in that point where you've lost it for, like, a year or something. So, like,
Yeah.
But to you, it's fresh and it's terrifying.
Yeah, okay. I think that sounds good.
Yeah, so you could be blind. You could have lost a limb. You could, depending on fears. Like, I have a fear of losing the ability to use my hands. Just because I use them for everything.
There are people where once they realize it's all fears, they won't have too much of a problem just getting past their fears. Some of them will still have issues because it's like a psychological thing where they won't be able to fully overcome it. But then what about others who say, oh no, I had a fear of going blind, I have now lost my sight. What happens if I start fearing other things, and then that fear comes true, and they start fearing other things, and they start fearing what happens if I lose my limbs, what happens if I lose my ability to talk, what happens if I die, and then...
Well, eventually
it can't necessarily directly kill you, but...
Well, again, it's a feeling. You feel like you've lost it all. At one point, your brain can... You, yourself... at one point, the door will have
maybe it would be easier if it just ran off of fear instead of running off of death.
Yeah, so its goal is
like that's what it wanted. I think that would be the easier way to go.
Okay, let's go explore that road. We've explored the death road. We're struggling with it. Let's go back to this idea that we'll take a couple steps back. This idea that the door doesn't want you to die. In fact, the longer it keeps you alive and fearful, the better chance it has. Like, it wants to feed off.
But if you die, it spits you out in the hallway.
Yeah, because, well, now you're useless to it. You can't feed off your fear. Like, oh, you idiot person actually died. So now, the door's goal is to, in a way, is to see how far it can push you. If anything, the door's become a bit more helpful now. Like, the door wants you to go through as many fears as possible until you become useless to it. In which case, if you happen to be alive and it's useless, it'll just spit you out alive. If you happen to be dead, it's dead. It doesn't care now if you die or not. All it cares about is getting as much fear out of you as possible. So you, in the door, your goal is to not give it fear. Because once you stop feeding it fear, it doesn't want you anymore and it'll spit you out.
That could work. Like, once you're able to just overcome your fears, suddenly it's like this is not working out well for me. I'm just gonna spit you out.
I need another person. So here, I feel like it needs a limit of people.
There's always I'm thinking that not many people will enter the door in the first place. Because think about it. When you're walking through a hallway and you see a door, it's not labeled. It's just sitting there beside all the other doors. You don't recall ever seeing it before. What do? You keep walking.
I mean, it depends on where the door spawns. If the door shows up in your house.
I mean, I was thinking it would be more. It would aim for more well-populated areas.
Well, here's the thing: how many people can be in the door at one time? What limit does it
have? I would think unlimited.
So we can have unlimited.
Or maybe because I was thinking that every time somebody is added.
Well, here's the thing.
Here's
the thing, though. If it can have as many people as it wants, the door has no motivation to spit you out. Now it just sits there and it's like, well, eventually I might think of something to make you scared. Or if you're in here long enough, you're going to be scared again. So I might as well just keep you prisoner and let you wander about until you think of a new fear I can try. And every now and then I'll spook you and feed off of you. But if the door has a limit,
maybe not
then the moment this person stops feeding it enough fear, it's going to want to spit them out so it can go get it, catching someone new.
Okay, so that'll work. Because I was thinking, what I was thinking was you would, it would try its best to hold as many people as it can, and then hold them for the reason you're talking about, because eventually it could find another fear, and then before these people develop a new fear, or think of something else like that the door could take advantage of, they go and they try to find their way out, find a way to defeat the door, something along those lines.
Yeah, but I think this is a door that it decides when you leave. Because it closes up and it will only open up once.
Yeah, I think that's probably better where it's like it has a limit of only just a few people that it can hold at one time.
So here's the next thing though. Can you be introduced to other people who went through the door? Story-wise, that sounds great. We want that for story. So how does that happen? How do you end up with other people?
Well, you're thrown into the same world, and
So is it about world size?
What if the world could pretty much only exist made from your mind and your memories? For example, if you have never been to Egypt, Egypt does not exist in this world.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. But
it's built from your life and from other people's lives who are in the door.
Yeah.
But if they leave, they take their lives with them, and and like if it's somebody who lives in Egypt, if they leave the door, Egypt stops existing in this world.
See, that's an interesting concept. That doesn't really answer the question. How do these people end up meeting each other?
Well, okay, so what I was saying, where I was going with that was, it was to make the world smaller.
Okay.
So that people could eventually find each other.
So let's say this. Let's say the door has a limit of 4.
Okay.
And the moment someone spawns in, a new section is made dedicated to their fears at that moment. Now that section can adapt and change, but it cannot move. That section is there, which means a person can find themselves out of that section, either by like running because they were terrified by something, and into the section of someone else, in which case they're introduced to their fears, which can still be terrifying and amusing to the door.
Yeah.
Because other people's fears, even if they aren't your own, can be scary. In which case, that means that there are set planes. Those planes change, but not according... But, like, you can find yourself in someone else's corner, pretty much. Now, if there's only happens to be, like, one person, those corners would be blocked off, I'd say. Like, there'd be, like, a black void that you can't go through until someone else enters, and then that corner's developed. And then you can enter through it. And maybe you get, like, you can see it happening. So, as you're, like, in your hellscape, terrified by, like, everything you're seeing and experiencing and stuff, I feel like it'd actually be kind of unnerving. You're watching the 3 other corners go through, like, metamorphosis, and every now and then you're seeing, like, the Eiffel Tower appear, and then disintegrate, and something else appear. Like, that's terrifying in itself. And maybe curiosity will drive you to go over there, or a fear will drive you into that area, and then you might meet up with other people. And so also the door can't teleport you, would be another rule. Like, it can push you places with your fears and stuff, and try to convince you to go to certain areas, but it can't fully control you, meaning if you wanted to go to that other area, you'd be able to.
Yeah.
And that way, people can now meet each other.
Okay.
And you can have up to 4 people meeting each other.
Yeah.
That's your limit, though. No more.
Like, some blank areas where you might not have a memory of could be empty spaces that are potentially filled by someone else's memories, where you don't know what's over there.
Yeah.
But maybe it's like, so the door, so it doesn't really matter whether or not the door puts something there.
Yeah.
And then they can be connected, and then people can go and meet up with each other.
Yeah.
And maybe there's some areas where there's shared memories, but the greatest fear for one person can exist in the area of someone else's memories. For example, if you have a memory of cotton ball factory, but you do not fear cotton balls, that other person who has the fear of cotton balls can still experience the
so like the door
factory.
will then try to push them to that side with other fears, so that way they could experience that in particular. That makes so much sense. Like, someone who's never seen a skyscraper but has a fear of heights, you're going to have to be... So then the fears are all intertwined, and the door has a reason to push people together accidentally.
Yes.
Like, it can't help it, because it knows that that's...
I mean, it doesn't necessarily... it tries to keep people apart from each other, but
it doesn't always succeed.
In each other's fears.
But yeah.
It tries to put you in someone else's fears, but does not try to introduce you to that person, because it knows once you have been introduced to another person, you can overcome your fears together. People are stronger.
Yeah, chances are, unless, of course, that person is on the driving point and, does it in front of that other person, and in which case the door gets a full-blown buffet. Because that might be a thing the door tries to do. Like, when it sees that someone's on the brink, like, about to snap, they send the other person over to watch. Like, that sounds like something sadistic the door would do.
Yeah. Now, the problem is getting that person over there. Because like I was saying before, they cannot just teleport you wherever it wants. It has to drive you towards wherever it wants.
Yeah.
Like, otherwise it'd be way too easy for, it's like, I have a fear of drowning. Well, now I'm going to dunk you in a pool, not let you swim up.
Yeah, I think that's something fun that the writer gets to play with, is how the door works. Like, because the door works according to the character, and you decide how smart the door is and stuff, and you can have a ton of plot convenience in the story, and no one would question it. No one would really see it as plot convenience, even though that's exactly what it is. But this is a world where you can get away with plot convenience.
It's just like the door is driving the plot.
It is. The door knows what it's... The door
controlling the world and the narrative.
It sees your thoughts.
And everything is bending to the door's will.
Yeah, because it can change areas in this thing. It just can't move you. So if you're on the ground, it can't, like, put a building and force you up top. It has to drive you up a building. Like, I say you're always in, like, the same coordinate position. And you can't be moved from that coordinate position. But a building could spawn directly in front of you, which is scary, right? Or like
I'm not sure. It could only spawn if it's in an area where you have no memory of it, where someone else does have the memory of it. Because if you have the memory of your house, you cannot spawn a building in front of that person's house.
If you have a building of a skyscraper, I feel like the world can choose when to put it in.
I just think because the idea is to make these characters think everything is real.
True.
Everything is 100% real, and they haven't left their world. It's just that something really weird happened when they went through the door and ended up in an alleyway and can't get back. And they think, I must be going crazy. What the heck is going on?
It also kind of depends on the person, though. For some people, that would be more scary. But for other people who maybe they're prone to insanity, and so like they've experienced things like that, and so it's terrifying to them. Or the fear of insanity itself is a legitimate fear that a lot of people have, the fear of going mad. So like seeing a building spawn up randomly would be terrifying.
Can you just imagine what it would be like going into this world with someone who is schizophrenic? Or either being schizophrenic or having a friend with you who is schizophrenic. Because on one hand, you're experiencing all of these insane fears, but then on the other hand, you're experiencing all of these insane fears that aren't your own, and they're all really random and coming out of nowhere.
I mean, that makes an interesting thing, having, like, for story-wise, you have 4 people you can make combos with.
Yeah, you can have one person who has much more physical fears, another person who has more psychological fears, another person who has schizophrenia and is like a little bit all over the place, and another person who maybe has 1 or 2 primary great fears, but for the most part is pretty fearless.
Now there are some times where I feel like the door would want people together, and like I'm gonna go back to my biggest fear type, which is when my fear happens to other people. So for me, watching other people struggle with fear would be more terrifying to me than experiencing some of my own fears. Just because watching other people be helpless hurts me more than being helpless myself.
Yeah,
like, I've been helpless and it doesn't affect me as bad.
Yeah, the door would absolutely want people together in that scenario.
So there's so many ways I can play with this.
Okay, hold on. It would want to give you a front row seat to watch other people experience their fears, but
it wouldn't want me to be able to help.
Yeah.
It would be blocking me from helping at, like, every time. Because if I could help them, then I'm not scared. Like, if I could try.
Yeah, one-way window.
Like, even if I fail, it's not... I know I tried. Like, my fear comes when I can't actually help. Like,
yeah, you're basically
being
just being
stuck
held
to
back and forced to watch. But they don't know that you're watching.
Yeah.
Like, people feel like they're alone when you're right there and you're just out of reach.
And you can't, like, and they can't hear you, they can't... See, that's a terrifying thought to me that I don't like. And something that the door would feed off of. So out of curiosity, I feel like we've got, like, the world established, how the door works. We've got about 10 minutes left. I feel like this is a good time to spend the last 10 minutes, and let's just talk about why the heck is the door doing this? Let's dive into that.
I could figure was, this is one of those questions where I'm wondering if for the sake of the plot, it would be more trouble than it's worth to answer.
Yes. Now, I would agree. In your book, it doesn't. But this isn't a book. This is World Explorers. We ask these questions, and we answer them whether we want to or not.
That's true.
So, again, I ask you, why the heck is the door spawning in places, sucking people up, and scaring them, some of them, to death?
There was a crazy kid who wished upon a narwhal and wanted a door that would lead to your greatest fear.
The fact that we're at this point in these podcasts where we've referenced, like, 5 other episodes, in, like, 1 episode is great, just saying. But, I don't know. So, I'm not really concerned, like, how the door is there, like, that is something I don't think could ever really be explained. Or, you could say it
it's obviously some kind of magic.
Or like, it was created, or it was, like, created by fear, like, itself. Like, fear personified itself in the form of a door. And then, of course, there's always the whole thing, like, maybe it is just all psychological. It's all in people's heads, and some people just have shared experiences.
Which, that's the most boring of answers.
Well,
but, okay. If you could make it, you'd have to change a lot of things to make that work with this store, but hey, if you can make it work, go for it. Write that story.
Yeah. Just, you have free reins over this. I'm still, like, one day we're gonna have, like, 100 of these episodes, and to celebrate, I'm going to publish a short story collection where I write a short story of, like, every episode.
That would be a lot of writing.
If I start now,
even on those short stories, you're still looking at 100.
Well, I'm thinking maybe we do it. I'm trying to think, like, when's a good time to do it. The thing is, I'd want to do it when we have people starting to, like, subscribe, and then, like, it could be a subscriber gift. I send them the book.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that'd be such a cool thing to do. But I don't know. People who are watching, let me know if that's a cool idea, and if you consider subscribing if I did that. Like, or like paying for that, something like that, where I don't know if I can get people's emails off of it. I'd have to figure it out, but let me know if you'd be interested in paying for, like, a weekly story from me where I write a story in the world, because, like, if I get money out of it, I'm more than willing to write a story every week. And maybe Isaac will do one every now and then, too, and stuff.
So, I mean, I could see that being like a Patreon.
Exactly, that's what I mean. Like,
it's like, you subscribe, it's like, use Patreon.
Because we haven't mentioned this yet, but
every week you get a short story.
Yeah, we haven't mentioned this, but I feel like we're established enough as a podcast for this. There is an option if you want to support us, like, financially, and you're enjoying the podcast, and you're like, oh, their mics sound like trash, I wish I could give them better mics so I can enjoy the experience more. You can help with that. Literally, the first donations we get will be going to getting Isaac a better mic. And then, no, Isaac. But the first, like, couple paychecks, that is what it'll be going to. So if you're interested in that, you just go to the homepage and the donate options there. So if that's something you're interested in, and then I can look into setting something up. You can also send, like, a personalized message. So, do that too, and, like, let us know your thoughts about if you're interested in, like, having us do a weekly writing story for you. So that way you can see how we use these world-building exercises to actually create stories in the world. You'll get to see, like, the second step, which
I will say,
beneficial.
I will say I would not mind having a better mic, because my current mic makes it so that I sound like I am sick all the time. It just sounds like my nose is stuffy. I do not sound like this in real life.
Yeah, I can vouch that he does not. So, if that's something you're interested in, again, no pressure. We'll keep posting these podcasts because I love doing them. They're fun. I think Isaac likes it too. He gets excited every week with whatever idea he has.
Yeah, they get fun. We still haven't answered the question about why is the door doing this.
Because we don't know how. We don't know why the door is doing this.
I don't know. Okay, if we're going to do... Okay, so... We have to give an answer because we're world builders in this podcast, not writers. We're putting the writing aside, we're just world building. Okay, so the reason the door is doing this is because if it does not feed people's fear, it will cease to exist. It was manifested and created by a bunch of people having some kind of fear during some major global event, let's say World
Creation
War
of the
One
world.
or two.
This thing could be old.
Yeah, this thing was like created maybe a very long time
during the fall.
Manifested from fear, and then and then it's trying to keep itself alive or existing. But the only way to do that is to fuel itself off of other people's fear, so it keeps on showing up to well-populated areas with the reasoning, I appear here, people will naturally, someone will naturally eventually walk through, and then I can introduce them to the Great Fear, even though the smartest option would be to appear in someone's house, because
I feel like it could do that too. Like, it could do whatever it wants. If that's what it wants, it can go anywhere.
Yep.
And
but I'm thinking, if it doesn't constantly feed off of fear, it will eventually die.
Yeah, which is why as soon as someone stops being afraid, they spit them out, because, like, they've got to go find another person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, final question.
Okay.
Would you rather live in the Doors world or in the first Narwhal world?
I dislike this question very... no, I want to live in the first Narwhal world because I've already defeated it. I'll have my bee sanctuary. Okay, yeah, I'll have a very happy life. The fact I had to consider that for a second, which is kind of sad. I sat there like, wait, no. First Narwhal world. Let's be real here. I would rather not be faced with like a long car drive with things flying out of other people's windows, only to be like drive into an area where I'm watching someone else suffer. That just does not sound like a pleasant way to spend my afternoon.
Yeah, I would much rather live in the Narwhal world as well.
Actually, before I end it, I shared a bunch of my fears, and you shared none of yours. What's one of your biggest fears? Or goofiest? I did both.
Goofiest fear?
What's something that you don't like sharing because you think people are going to make fun of you?
This is the thing I've always thought about, but I can never really pinpoint it. Like, I've always tried really hard to think, what is some sort of irrational fear that I have, or some goofy fear, or something like that. I can never think of anything. It's always really bothered me. I am sure it exists, because we all have it.
Mine's open car windows.
I have thought about this a lot, and I just cannot pinpoint what it is.
I've only discovered mine recently, because I used to get like anxious in the car, and I never really knew why. And then I actually started thinking about it, I'm like, no, I know why I'm anxious in the car. I've just been, like, blocking it because I didn't want to admit it was a fear. Now that I've admitted it, it does not help. I'm still just as terrified of it, but at least now I can sit there and say, hey, can you please close the windows? just please.
I mean,
also, I'll never buy a truck or a motorcycle, and that's just...
I have a bunch of more minor ones, but, like, they're not things that, are ridiculous. They're really ridiculous, and they're things that, like, for example, me not being a little bit paranoid about letting somebody else take on some sort of project for me for the fear of they won't do it properly, or I think I could do it better.
Oh, that's a legitimate fear, though.
Just right, and I need to get it done my way because I'm not entrusting anyone.
Out of curiosity, Isaac, how anxious does this podcast make you then?
How anxious does the podcast make you?
Yeah, because I'm wondering, like, the editing and stuff. Does that make you anxious, or do you
not really, because I trust that you're not really gonna cut out anything important.
I've told you everything that I cut out. Like, I always say, hey, by the way, I'm cutting this out.
Yeah, like, and I'm like, oh, yeah, I know. It's like, we're good. It's like, I have no problem with you cutting that out.
Yeah. I also cut out all our very long, awkward silences. You have no idea how many those are. I load up the podcast and I sit there and like I look for the gaps and I just go through and cut out gaps, like, and then I listen to the podcast.
Yeah, if it's a simple task, like I'm not saying this isn't difficult.
It's simple.
Like,
it's just time consuming.
It's simple.
It's simple.
Yeah, like
it is a simple task.
I think it's a simple task, like cutting out pauses or cutting out parts where you go off on random tangents. I am okay with that if it's something that is more complicated that I know I can do, but I don't have the time for, and I need to pass it on to somebody else. I might like constantly call them like every hour and be like, "Hey, how's it going?" Okay. I mean, like if I were to leave my dog and with somebody to watch
I know
after
that
them,
feeling.
I would constantly be like, "Hey, so." have you taken her outside? Okay, goodbye. Hey, how's her food? Hey,
Yeah,
how is she interacting with other dogs?
I left Stella alone for a weekend, like, with a bunch of food and water, because you can do that with a hamster. You can leave them for a weekend without, like, someone needing to watch them. But I was, like, anxious the whole time, like, sitting there in my parents' house, because I was visiting them, like, what if she escapes? What if I didn't actually put in enough food? What if something happens to her water and it gets plugged out? What if she gets stuck in her tube? She does that occasionally. And she's just sitting there for, like, 3... I had stressful nights. I struggled to sleep for, like, it was the first night was the first time I'd struggled to sleep, like, ever, really, because I was, like, anxious about her. She's fine, though. I'm playing with her this podcast. Like, all podcasts have been playing with her. So if you've heard any weird noises, I apologize. It's just her playing with me playing with her. But this is all the time we have for today. This was a great topic. Like, one of the more interesting. I really enjoyed this, so good job, Isaac, on picking a really cool topic.
Yes.
I like every topic, but I don't know, this one particularly... It was a darker topic, which I'm surprised because you don't usually go for those, but I love them. I love a good, dark, depressing topic.
I mean, I was just thinking back to the memory elevator, and I'm like, there was something special about that one, aside from the fact that it was our first episode. It's like, because
the memory elevator is a good episode just in general. All of them are, to be honest. They're all great. So.
I mean, I still am not a fan of that dragon one. I didn't feel like it got anywhere, but hey, you like it, so.
I enjoyed it. There were it was a good, like, basic world building. Like, let's talk about the things you wouldn't normally think about building a world, but are actually important. Like doors. But anyways, we are past the time, I think. Hopefully. I might have to edit a few things out so this is an hour long, but less than an hour, because we have a limit. But yeah, we're gonna end it here, and join us next week for another one. And also keep in mind you can send us messages through the main website. So if you're interested in that, go ahead. We want to hear feedback, please. No one's ever sent us feedback, and it's sad. Anyways, we're gonna say goodbye. Say goodbye, Isaac.
I'll say goodbye with the most creepy voice possible.
Alright. Farewell.
The sound of a door squeaking. Goodbye. Bye.
We're done.